Year 10, this is Mr. Tapley here for your next lesson of Year 10 Geography. This lesson we are looking at biodiversity. So bio meaning life, and then diversity meaning difference, variety, range. So a lot of life is what we're looking at this lesson. And we're looking at developing our understanding of that word, and then connecting environmental changes like the ones you saw in the Before the Flood documentary to biodiversity loss. So what is causing this loss of life around our planet? Success criteria is to define the term biodiversity, to explain the importance of environmental management, and then connect human activities to biodiversity loss, because as always, it's the human's fault. So we'll look at that this lesson. And as always, I'm trying to find a few useful links to throw into the slides. So if you get to the end of the slide, the end of this presentation, you don't quite understand biodiversity, this video here, this little short 4-minute video, will definitely be able to help you with your understanding and with the lesson activities, maybe help you complete the slide activities. So what is biodiversity? Biodiversity is the measure of the number of species, so wildlife, animal, plants, present in a particular ecosystem or region. So the number of different types, or I was about to say brands, types, types of species of animals in an environment. The Earth's biodiversity is currently under threat, so it's decreasing at a rate that possibly rivals the mass extinction of the dinosaurs. So the exact rate is difficult to determine. However, there is somewhere between a loss of 17,000 to 100,000 species of wildlife per year, which is a ridiculous number. So that's how many different, I was about to say brands again, different species, different types of animals are dying each year. This biodiversity loss has serious consequences for the environment and for human life. That's often what I get from geography as well, is I don't really care about the fluffy little animals, Mr. Tapley. You should, because those animals and plants give you ecological services. So we depend on the environment for ecological services. It's how we've managed to live for thousands and thousands of years. It's because of our environment. Any other planet, this wouldn't work. The environment gives us food. It gives us resources like wood, oil, minerals, etc. It gives us water. It gives us etc. And as biodiversity decreases, all those services are eliminated. So as more and more animals decrease, as those species die out and become extinct, the amount of food available to us, that goes away. As trees get cut down, we lose something that gives us oxygen and takes away CO2. We also use those trees for wood to build houses, furniture, etc., etc. So biodiversity is a good thing. We should be keeping it around. That's my pitch. The environment is connected. You're going to hear me say connected and interconnection quite a lot throughout this topic, because everything is connected. The environment is one big chain. So the environment is connected. If you lose one animal or plant species, it will impact countless others in a chain reaction. So if you lose, this isn't true, but let's say that the rhinoceros here eats those guys for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If the thylacine, the Tasmanian tiger, dies out, not only are you losing one animal species, but the animals that used to eat those blokes, now they've lost their source of food, and they will die out. And let's say that these guys used to eat the things that protected this guy and allowed him to live. Now you've lost 3 animal species, and so on and so on. There's always a chain reaction. It's all connected. Examine the different species below. How many do you believe are extinct? Not a textbook question, obviously, but I've got the names of the animals listed in the slide notes below. Before you check out their names and search for how many are still alive, just have a guess. I'm curious to see what you guys guess. How many of these blokes do you think are still alive? So what is causing biodiversity loss? Biodiversity, we know what it means. We know it's important because I said so. But what's causing biodiversity loss? Well, habitat destruction. So different animal and plant species have evolved throughout history to adapt to their unique climate, e.g. animals evolving to adapt very hot desert-like climates. If a human activity destroys their habitat, destroys their home, they're going to struggle to survive, because over thousands of years they have evolved, they have changed who they are to survive in this one type of environment, this one forest, this one desert, this one ocean. And if we mess that up, they can't just immediately change and adapt to their new environment. It takes thousands of years. So if we throw them somewhere else, they're going to die. Over exploitation of resources. So this happens quite a lot. We will divert So we'll change where water is to where we want it to go. So if there's a river or a lake, instead of letting it chill over there, we're going to bring it to the city. We're going to bring it to a village, a town, whatever. And that's good for us, but the animals and plants that depended on that resource, depended on that water to survive, will then suffer. And then biodiversity loss will eventually occur as animal and plant species diminish. So if 10 different types of animals, 10 different types of birds, fish, etc. all depended on that water, and we take it away, we exploit the water, instead of taking a bucket full, we take the whole damn lake, that's over exploiting the resource. Animals will die, plants will die, biodiversity loss. Pollution. Human activities have decreased the health of not only the land, but the air and the water. Pretty much everything. The smallest change can destroy an environment's ability to support life. For those of you who are doing, I think you look at it in bio and maybe chem, you look at pH, you look at the acidity of soil and of water. If you change that just a fraction, it can kill everything that lives there. So plants are very, very fragile. Animals are very, very fragile sometimes. So if you change their environment just a little bit, so if you change the health of the water, if you change how hot the water is, as a result of climate change, all the life can die. So pollution is impacting biodiversity, obviously. And then here's an interesting one. Invasive species. Not invading, they're not warriors or some enemy army. Invasive species are the introduction of a foreign or invasive species. So basically, we've got those little platypuses, kangaroos, wombats, etc. Those are all Australian native wildlife, natural wildlife. But animals like the fox, they weren't originally in Australia. We brought them over from another country. Animals like the cane toad in Queensland, the camel. Australia didn't used to have camels. Now we have a lot of camels. These foreign species, these foreign animals being brought into our environment can devastate natural life. The environment is a very fragile balance, a fragile ecosystem of interconnected species. Introducing a new competitor for resources and territory can destroy the balance. You think of it as your school. So you guys are the native wildlife. If I was to introduce invasive and foreign Mount Waverley Secondary College students, if I brought the entire school over here and I dropped all the students out in the front yard, they're going to now compete for your resources and you guys are going to suffer. It's going to take you 7 hours to get to the food and water in the canteen. You're not going to have any access to the oval, the basketball courts, because these foreign animals have come in and taken what's yours. So that's what an invasive species does, and obviously it can lead to biodiversity loss. Sustainability, protecting the future. So we know what it is, we know why it's bad, we know it is bad and how we're causing it. What can we do about it? Well, biodiversity loss is almost entirely due to human impact, which is bad, but it means there's only one problem, so we can come up with a solution. Our use of the Earth's resources is pushing different species to extinction. All human activities impact the environment. However, we can reduce the negative impact from this to this. Not sure if my hands were on camera there, but by practicing something called sustainability. If we use natural resources at a rapid, unstable, and irresponsible rate, the environment will be permanently damaged. It can't recover from that L. However, the Earth can repair itself. The Earth can rebuild itself. All the damage we've done to the environment can be fixed if we use resources responsibly and we use just less of what we are doing. It's that easy. Sustainable use of resources will allow the Earth to naturally restore and recover the damage that we've done. So, what I'd like you to do to evaluate your understanding this lesson, 3 questions. So question 1, define the terms biodiversity and sustainability. So pretty straightforward. 2 definitions there. Question 2, explain the importance of biodiversity and the dangers of biodiversity loss. So why should I care about biodiversity? And then the second half of that question is what happens if we don't fix biodiversity? So the consequences. Question 3, this slide here, there we are. 1, 2, 3, 4 major causes of biodiversity loss. What I'd like you to do for question 3 is list a specific example of the main causes of biodiversity loss around the world. So I don't want you to just copy and paste what I put on the slide. I want you to find a specific habitat for a specific animal or plant in a specific part of the country that is an example of habitat destruction. Find me one specific resource in one specific country where we've overexploited the resources, whether that's water, wood, etc., etc., etc. Pollution. find a city or a river or somewhere in the world where we've caused pollution. So you're not just giving me what I've written in the slides. What I want for question 3 is specific examples. I want you to find real world examples of biodiversity loss. I've given you some of these during my little speech. And then finally, I've just included this. I did make my students last semester do it, but I thought I'd give you guys 3 questions instead of 4. This little bonus activity, though, for those of you who finish early, you're looking for something to kill the time, to evaluate whether you are living a sustainable life, use the link below to calculate and record your ecological footprint. So it's your personal impact on the environment. So that website there is from WWF. If you open it up, it takes you to a little questionnaire, a little survey about your environmental impact. So it asks you, how long does it take you to get to work, to school? How often do you shower? How often do you use electricity, etc., etc.? And then what it ends with, the end result is basically how much energy you use, and then if everyone on the planet used as much energy as you, it says this is how many planets we would need to survive. Which is interesting because I drive an hour and a bit to get to work every day, each way. So 2 hours, 2.5 hours every day. So I do a lot of environmental impact as your geography teacher, so I apologize for that. But that's really just a bonus activity if you finish those 3 questions. If you have any questions about the questions, of course, feel free to ask me, email, Google Classroom comments, etc. Best of luck, guys. Cheers.